Hey guys, how's it going? CoderMan here. In today's video I have something a little bit different. I have my buddy here, Austin, from Valvetronic Designs. Go ahead and tell themselves a little bit about what you do.
At Valvetronic Designs, we engineer Valvetronic systems currently for the BMW 335i, the E90 generation. That includes your sedans, coupes, and convertibles. And right now we're working on developing our Valvetronic system for the E90 M Series BMWs.
So in today's video, I brought Austin in because I want him to give his own first-person view on the PPI or vehicle that
This is such a scam.
This right here, you guys seen it. If you haven't, I'll link it in the comments as well as a card. $15,000 from BMW to have the M3. Really, it's not even important stuff. It was just stuff that, I guess needs to be done. I had a couple people reached out to me and said, so you basically went to the dealership and they kind of screwed you, or they were going to screw you. But what if you're buying a car out of state? Well, Austin actually has done that quite a few times. What is it, like 4 or 5 cars now?
5 cars now.
Yeah, so 5 cars. So I wanted to bring him in and give his first-person perspective on how that all works.
So his last video, you saw $15,000 from a dealership. When you buy a car long distance, your natural inclination is to think, I'll have the car inspected by a dealer. Say the car's in California, Arizona, wherever, have the car inspected by the dealer. The problem is you're going to spend a lot of money, at least $300 just for the inspection, which is a traditional hour inspection, plus another $150 if you want to have the car scanned. So $450 for a car that you might not even buy seems a little bit much. When you go through the buying process, when you're buying a car out of state, good thing is to use the wonderful word of the internet to find a good shop to work with. And within that shop, there are 4 main things that I've found that are very important when you're looking to buy your car, even close by, but out of state as well.
Okay, so there's 4 parts to this process, and I'm going to let Austin go into each individual one. So the first part, of course, is picking the right car.
So when you're thinking about picking the right car, using sites like Auto Tempest, Cars.com, Craigslist, you have a wide range of where you can find these cars. The best thing to look for is look for good pictures, make sure that everything looks like it's documented. A nice long description of the car, description of history, shows that the seller is very interested in selling. We've all seen those ads where it says AC blows cold, and that's about it. Make sure that you're kind of testing the seller, make sure you give them a call, make sure they're all legit. That's kind of basic things. The next thing is you want to do a VIN search, put that VIN that you find in the ad, into a search, see if there's any issues. Obviously, people like cars with no accidents, as some of the things we've seen with like VinWiki and Rob Ferretti talks about it. Cars can have accidents, but they never reported on the CARFAX. So about 2 years ago, I bought a Grand Cherokee and had sort of the situation happen where the car had definitely been in an accident, but that didn't show up on the CARFAX. So make sure that you're wary of those things when you're checking out the VIN, and also use that VIN search to see if services have been taken care and there's no open recalls.
Yeah, so one thing that you had mentioned in the picking the right car was the CARFAX element, right? So can you tell maybe a little bit about how does it not get onto CARFAX? Because I think a lot of people just look at that as kind of like the holy grail of here's everything that's wrong with the car. Anything beyond this is immaterial, it's never had a problem. But there's a lot of instances where you could have a vehicle that has a whole bunch of problems, but CARFAX is never told about it.
So in regards to the CARFAX, having that be the holy grail, obviously things do not get reported to CARFAX all the time. I had a 335 and I bumped into somebody in a parking lot, damaged the front of my car. I needed a headlight, a bumper, grills. I ended up fixing it myself, and then I sold the car and there was nothing on the CARFAX. I disclosed to the new owner that there had been an accident. Cars can get into accidents, small things, sometimes even big things, but if an insurance company does not pay out to the individual who owns the car to have it fixed, that car is going to go as a clean CARFAX and it's going to have no accidents reported.
So the second thing to keep in mind when purchasing a vehicle out of state is the pre-purchase inspection, the PPI, which, of course, you guys saw this one. This right here is what you don't want to have happen. So do you want to go ahead and tell a little bit about like the PPI process, especially when a vehicle is out of state? Like how do you vet somebody to actually to inspect it?
So the problem you can see with his invoice there, $15,000, if you're trying to sell your car and maybe get into something new, that it's a time game. You don't want to be sitting on this car that you're trying to sell forever. This makes your car look terrible to a buyer because they're thinking $15,000, that's a lot of money when you're buying a BMW that's $30,000, $35,000. What I recommend is when you're looking to buy a car long distance, find the seller's exact location of where they are. Use the internet to kind of search car shops or car specialty shops around your area. Doesn't matter if you're buying a Ferrari, a Porsche, a BMW, an Audi. find some sort of specialist that seems to have worked on those cars in the past, check out their website, and try and get on the phone with the owner. If you get on the phone with the owner, explain your situation. When I was buying my BMW M3, which is from Arizona, I called at least 10 places. People seemed interested in doing the work, but no one was entirely convinced on what I was doing. But there was one shop in particular that said, hey, I totally understand. My son was looking to buy a car out of state. I understand where you're coming from. You're a long way away. I'll take care of you. That's the type of person you want to find because they're going to show you all the information that you need to know. You're buying a $30,000 car, sometimes a lot more. You could buy a $150,000 car without even going to see it. You want to know that it's been taken care of, there's no damage that you don't know about, and make sure that the people are honest about what they're saying you or what they're telling you about the car. Another thing to add to that is when you're discussing with the owner or person who's going to be inspecting your car, make sure the dealer also does the scan. You want to make sure that there's no visible damage that people can see, and then when they do the scan, they can see, okay, there's no stored faults for maybe the car's running no cats or something. You can figure that out via the scan. So make sure you're doing the scan plus the traditional PPI.
So at this point in the process, you've found the car that you want, you've gone through the PPI process, you made sure that everything checks out, you want to purchase this vehicle. Like I mentioned in the beginning, you could hop on a plane and go grab it, but if you're not buying a Ferrari here, it's probably not likely, or if you're just busy, you don't want to do that. How do you handle the payment, right? Because I would imagine I'm not going to send a guy a bucket of cash.
So when I've bought cars out of state, sometimes they have liens on them, sometimes they don't. If the car does have a lien, it's pretty easy for you to go through the bank, pay off the balance of the loan, and then you can get the title through them. Most of your interaction is going to be with the bank, not even with the seller, if the car has a loan. If the car does not have a loan, and you're paying cash with the car, this cash is probably not going to go under this person's mattress. It's probably going to go in their account and they're going to do something else with it. With figuring out where you're going to send the money, don't send a check in the mail. It's good to discuss with the bank first what's going on. So if they have a Bank of America account, call their local branch and ask about this person. So make sure that you're discussing over the phone. A big thing with all of these, even with the 4 parts that we're going to discuss, make sure that you're talking to people on the phone. Email, not great, but if you're on the phone with somebody, you have a much better understanding of if this person's trustworthy and if they have an alternate agenda that they're working on.
Right, that's great because like with the M3, I had somebody that was interested, or so I thought, right? It was listed on Craigslist. It's been listed a couple times. Now I'm keeping it. But at the time when it was listed, I had someone that reached out to me via text and was like, having conversations back and forth. And something just seemed kind of weird, so I decided, where are you located? They told me they were in Boston. All right, let's meet up. And then all of a sudden it was like, we can never get a time to meet up. And then they were like, oh, by the way, I'm now out of the country, so could you potentially do the deal with one of my family members and then I'll purchase the vehicle. And you know how that goes. But so, definitely make sure you can talk to the person that you're buying the vehicle from. All right, so the last thing when purchasing a vehicle out of state is, of course, how do you get that vehicle to you? There's all sorts of different options. You could have somebody go out there and get it for you. You could have it trailered to your house. But, depending on the type of vehicle that you're purchasing, you probably want it to be done by somebody who's licensed and insured and knows what the heck they're doing. So when you receive the vehicle, it's actually the way that you purchased it. So I imagine you've shipped your vehicles. I'm guessing the M3 especially was shipped. How did that process kind of go?
Definitely. So there's 2 ways that I've gone about shipping my cars in the past. The first way is your traditional method of going to hire a trucking company. The second was actually using a family member of mine's Raptor, and we drove down to New York. I bought an E46 M3 from New York. We ended up driving down there and picking up a U-Haul trailer, a one-way U-Haul trailer, attached the trailer to the truck, went and picked up the car, and was able to drive home. If you're within 300, 400 miles, that's a good way to do it. You could save yourself a lot of cash. And renting the trailer is a lot less than having the car put on a truck. So when I went to go buy my E92 from Arizona, I found that shipping your car long distance is a balance between cost and comfort. You could obviously spend a lot less money and maybe have a more shady company get you the car for $600, $700 across the country, but they might not have insurance, they might not be very reputable. What I found, you're trailering your brand new car that's going to be very important to you, 2,000, 3,000, sometimes even more across the country, or even if it's shorter distance, you want to have faith that these people are going to be on time and that they're doing everything by the book, they have insurance, and if for some reason your car disappears, it's not like, oh, sorry. What I found was working with the seller, we had figured out some shipping companies that were interested in shipping the car, called around, figured out what these companies' policies were, if the car was late or if the truck broke down. Live tracking, that sort of thing is important to pay attention to. For me, I was lucky that the seller's sister ended up working for a shipping company, so it was practically just put on a truck and it showed up. When I was working with those companies, you find out some will give you a better price and there's more time involved, but others, my car ended up costing me $1,100 to ship from Arizona to Boston. Some people say that's a lot of money. Also, the car was uncovered. But for me, these people had the best insurance and all their information about the company seemed positive. If you think about it, people buy GT3s, Ferraris, all sorts of stuff. When it comes in from the dealer, it comes in an open carrier truck. So people say that you have to have an enclosed carrier. Maybe if you're buying a Koenigsegg or something extremely expensive and you can't have a single itty-bitty rock chip. But
well, because the car is going to be outside, right?
Exactly.
If it's a museum piece, like it's going to sit and you're going to use it. It's not just going to sit there and be pristine.
When they load your car on the truck, have them put it on the top because if it's lower down, you could get rocks from the outside. So sometimes they'll adhere to this, sometimes they won't. Because then when your car shows up a day early, like mine did, I was super excited when I came home from eating and I saw my car coming off the trailer. That's the most exciting feeling. So through all these 4 things, the big things are making sure that you're calling people, make sure that you're documenting your process, make sure you're not skipping things, make sure all your payment information is always in line. If you get ahead of yourself, like people do with car purchases, you could end up missing something and your car could show up, everything's great, and then you find out it's got a fault because the PPI people didn't do a good job. Take your time, and there's going to be tons of cars. I know that there's tons of M3s. I wanted mine because it's red over speed cloth, carbon fiber roof, manual. I was willing to lose the car if everything didn't seem perfect for me because you have time. Make sure that you're finding the good deals and make sure that you're documenting your process. Pay attention to those 4 steps and you're not going to get yourself in trouble.
So one thing that we didn't go over in these 4 bullet points is, when they say when you buy a new car or a used car, test drive it. So actually, I know we didn't have it on this list, but I was actually kind of curious. Had you driven these cars before? Had you maybe had somebody that had experienced it? Like, how did you decide, like, this is the car for me?
Definitely.
Especially when you're buying it out of state.
So when you're thinking about picking your next car, obviously, as he said, a big thing is test driving it. Sometimes these dealerships, I know that when my father and I went to go pick up our M2, we weren't allowed to test drive it. A lot of these dealerships are doing that because they want to introduce some sort of rarity to these cars. There's M2s and all sorts of this stuff everywhere. So we understand that sometimes you won't be able to drive it, but M3s and stuff that you're buying used, don't be afraid to go down to some dealers and talk to them for a little bit and get behind the wheel of these cars that you're interested in buying, because the only way to figure out if you really want to own these cars in the long run is to take them out for a drive.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the thing about not being able to test drive new cars, but believe it or not, with my M3, I couldn't test drive it. So it was actually at the back of the dealership. It was an indoor setup, and it was like 5 or 6 cars in front of it, logistically, to get it out the door. They didn't want to just have people driving it for various reasons. It was a manual, so they don't want people to burn the clutch. Obviously they want to make sure you know how to drive it. And so it was kind of weird because it was the first vehicle that I was buying that had a manual, and I wasn't able to test drive it. I was taking their word on it. And really, the only reason I did it was because of the fact that it had the extended warranty from BMW.
It is fair to kind of go around and test out these cars. I know that some of the things that I was looking for, I test drove some S4s, Mustangs. I drove a GT350, which was awesome, but I can't afford that yet. Soon. Great cars, and I found the M3 was the best mix of all of them. I went and drove a couple of dealerships. I drove a DCT sedan. I drove a manual coupe that I really, really liked. I was going to go forward and buy it. But the car didn't feel tight, and so I was not really comfortable with going through on that deal. When you're looking at a car that's very long distance, obviously you're not going to test drive it if you don't go out there and look at it yourself. The PPI people who do the inspection for you should definitely take the car on like a road test, make sure that the brakes are good, that all the driving dynamics are as they should be. If you find a good specialist that has worked on these cars before, they'll be able to tell you some nuanced things. If you just get your regular mechanic to go and drive an M3, they're going to be, yeah, it's great, it sounds good, but make sure that when you're working with your PPI person who's going to do the inspection, that they do the road test and that they inspect, even after, to make sure that there's no weird brake wear from the drive over. All that stuff, make sure that those people are paying attention to, because that's another big thing in your PPI process.
Yeah, and one final thing to add, going back to the PPI, is, like I said, when I had this here, if you get a price that you're like, holy crap, this car's not worth it, really look over the PPI, because they're going to be very critical on every single element. Like if you have a home inspection, like there's certain things that you kind of have to weigh. Is this a deal breaker? Is this a negotiating strategy where I can go back to the seller and say, hey, it needs this, this, and this, knock $5,000 off the price? You know, so definitely just like, don't immediately look at it and be like, oh crap, this isn't the car for me. If it's something you really want, it's the car that you're into, like don't let the PPI determine whether you get it or not. Excluding, of course, if it's like, you know, it needs a new engine, or it has, you know, it's an 8-cylinder car and one of the cylinders sounds like it's going to come through. Maybe not buy that car. You know what I mean? You can if you want, but I don't recommend it personally.
A situation that happened with me is I had a carbon black E46 M3 in '04, and someone had come along to buy it, and they brought it to some shop I wasn't really comfortable with bringing it to. They were a BMW shop, but I hadn't really heard good reviews. And this guy called them on the same day, and they were able to do an inspection on the same day, which to me kind of says they're not doing a ton of business. So the car, we brought the car over there. When they brought the car up on the lift, the lift piece kind of damaged the side skirt, so I was not really happy about that. And they had everything documented, nuts and bolts, and they said that the car needed some things. They said it needed about $4,000 worth of work to make it exactly perfect, which for that kind of car actually makes sense. You know, it had some coolant lines or something that they said were leaking a little bit, and just small things that they wanted to pay attention to. The seller ended up walking away, and I was a little bit confused, but I guess the seller was not comfortable with all the minor things that the car had. Obviously, as he said, if the car is going to throw a rod to the bottom of the engine, don't buy it if it sounds bad. But little things that are on the PPI, they're supposed to be very thorough with your car, and that's what you're paying them the $150, $200 to do. I thank Matt for having me here today.
Yeah, man, thanks for coming over. I appreciate you doing this. Hopefully this helps you guys. As always, I appreciate you guys checking out the video. Definitely go and subscribe to his channel. Check out what he's doing. Exhaust stuff is really cool. Go ahead and check out his website as well. I'll put everything in the description to the video. And yeah, just thanks again for coming out.
We only have 9 subscribers thus far, and I've opened up the channel about 2 weeks ago, so the more people we can get on the channel is great. We want to bring this new technology, the Valvetronic technology, into a better price bracket.
So as always, appreciate you guys checking out the video. Please leave a comment below. Provide your insight, provide your experience if you had a PPI done. I create these videos to help you guys. That's why I brought Austin in. He has personal experience. You can go to the forums and learn, but why not learn it firsthand from somebody? Let's definitely go ahead and subscribe to his channel. I know I don't have a ton of subscribers, but I know a bunch of you guys watched till the end of the video, so let's go ahead and pay back, if you will, by going to his channel and subscribing, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.